Okay, quick update on ink application methodology. All right, I don't know. I can't think of a better description of it than that, but I always used to use, or for a long period of time, I was using Colorbox Stylus tools. All right, really comfortable in the hand, and you can, you're able to manipulate these in different ways. You can use it flat, you can use it on the edge, front, tapping, swiping, etc. Okay, a really nice dense sponge configuration to that. Okay, it's not a real loose type of sponge. It was dense enough to hold enough liquid, but not so dense that it can't leave, a nice application of it. Okay, it takes a little bit of technique to get it down, but I mean, it's something that people can learn in, a minute or something like that. And there were certain things that I would use, methods that I would use to get new users into the process of an easy application. That's mainly using dye-based re-inkers as opposed to going straight from the pad, just because we get a much more of a thicker, immediate application using more ink like this. Okay, when you're tapping into a pad like that, you're just going, it's very surface oriented, so you're only getting ink on the surface like that. But if you have ink built up a little bit in the sponge, you're able to squeeze some out and to spread and drag it around and apply it in a really nice, smooth fashion. Okay, these aren't around anymore. You can find them maybe in a couple of spots, but they're just not around. Now, sponge applicators like your cosmetic sponges and whatnot, I've tested these out in the past, and these worked fine. These were the types of things that we would use before things like this were available. Media-specific types of applicators like this. And there still aren't a whole lot of them. There's a lot of things that have been repurposed and whatnot, but let's look into some just household items. Okay, now I've done this in the past, but I thought I would do an update on both glossy and matte paper here. Okay, and then we'll show you an application of these different types of things here onto a pre-stamped scene right here. I don't know, I've done this one probably for a stamp sketching video in the past, I don't remember. But anyways, okay, let's take a look at what we have here. This is like the worst possible, kitchen sponge here. It was destined for the trash, but I thought, okay, let's use some of this. And I've used this before in a video, and it worked fine, you know what I mean? It's not ideal, especially in this state right here. We have the Cosmetic Sponge. Looks like this one was for browns or something like that. It has a little bit of a brown tone. I typically have designate, certain ones for different color schemes. Eventually they all kind of turn black though, but we'll try something out with this blue right here. Paper towel, this one has been kind of my go-to thing. And here's one of those kitchen chamois. I just went under our kitchen sink and I took a look around to see what we had, in terms of some different household items that can work just fine, okay? Now, the reason why I'm doing this video is a lot of people think that in order to do a scene, or, specifically, what's worse is Stampscape scenes. Okay, I gotta have the stylus tool, otherwise you can't do it. There isn't anything in the technique that is media or applicator specific, okay? It's just getting ink from this to this. Now, there might be some different tools out there in the industry that, are applicator specific, but I can't think of too many applications of that, okay? So right now we have some dye-based ink, and I'll show you the basic application technique for so many of these different types of videos, okay? And we'll make it really easy right here. This is just some Memento ink. You can use distress inks and whatnot, okay? I've even tried this with pigment ink. Pigment inks work differently though, but you can even do something like that, all right? But here's your basic type of application, okay? This is just going onto a matte cardstock, okay? Now, if I had to, I wouldn't want to, but, because it's just not sealed off and it's not as great. This is copy paper right here, okay? Just 11 by 17 copy paper, all right? And this is just the look right here, okay? So that's one type of swiping technique. And again, this is on matte cardstock right here, okay? I typically just take it and I wipe it from the edge in, okay? Now watch what I'm doing here, okay? I'm kind of going like this. I'm not just going like this and then up, okay? I'm using this type of swiping motion, okay? Like that, like you're brushing something on, all right? Like that, okay? And there it is on matte, and here it is on glossy, okay? And again, these are cardstocks. Now, if you're using photo paper, these cardstocks are clay coated. This one happens to have a glossy coating on it, you know, because it's glossy. But these are both clay coated. That's where cardstock comes into play. Photo paper, glossy photo paper, is emulsion based. So if you did something like this, you would feel that there's a little bit more of a much faster absorption kind of rate, you know, of the ink. So it might feel like you're applying color on, I don't know what it would feel like a chalkboard or something like that. You know, the ink dries up very quickly. So it's kind of hard to get a swipe like that. Okay, now that's just using, you know, just a wadded up paper towel, okay? And I try to get it, you know, for the most part pretty, I don't know, there's that crease right there, but you know what I mean? I mean, you don't have to be, you know, super careful. You know, I'd get enough of it. This is like a quarter, you know, paper towel or something like that. And I can do like almost a whole scene from this, all right? You can even change colors. You can go with, you know, a light blue or something like that, like I typically do. And I work a little bit darker and darker. We'll do, you know, we'll do some sort of application like that. Okay, well, let's try some of these other tools here, okay? This is your Cosmetic Sponge, your triangular, wedge-shaped makeup sponge, okay? All right, go like this. This one feels like it's holding a little bit less ink. Of course, it's porous, you know, with something like this where I can kind of flatten out my application surface and make it a little bit more dense, okay? Than something like this, since it's bouncy, of course, okay? But here it is again onto glossy cardstock. Let me try to explain it here too. Okay, kind of a light touch right here, and then a drag, okay? Now a lot of people, what they do is they have a heavy hand, so they might go like this, okay? And then they'll wipe it on, and then they might get a little bit of a, you know, kind of that square there, and the edges showing. So this is what typically happens when people are kind of getting the feel of doing this type of thing. Let me do it on this kind of open side right here, or untouched side. You know, they might get, okay, I'm trying to get a real edgy thing, but if I blend it in, it blends in just fine. Memento inks, Ranger inks, Distress, and everything like that, they're nice and thick inks, so you can kind of spread them around. But let me try to purposely get some more edgy types of things like that. See where those kind of edges like that are a little bit more prominent, okay? That's what happens. And when people kind of, you know, they go like this and they go like this, and then they drag it, you know, and that first kind of absorption type of thing like that picks up those edges. But if you just kind of, you know, work with it a little bit like that, you can get a pretty good application. And what happens is a lot of times people get, if this is their first thing and they see these types of things like that, they get panicky and say, oh my god, it's not working. But typically what I do is I add on like 3, 4, 5 layers of ink. So those first types of applications, if they are rather kind of choppy and uneven and whatnot, and you know, you can see those angles on there. By the time you work through 3 or 4 inks, it's not going to be showing like that. You know, it won't be as prominent. The reason why certain types of angles show up early on is because you have color against white. But, you know, once you run all these colors in there, you know, you can get a pretty good transition. And this was really purposely trying, you know, with everything that I had to get, you know, some horrible applications. Okay, now let's try this one on a matte cardstock, okay? And this is a true matte cardstock. It's not just using the non-glossy side of my glossy cardstock, okay? All right. Pretty good, right? Really nice. Okay. See that right there? See that nice transition? Okay, now let's say I wanted to get a little bit of a buildup. Sometimes I use these colors, in a kind of a tapping motion. This one's not as good for that because it has these harder edges, but I guess if you want to, you can take, let's just do it right here. I don't have a scissor right here. But see these harder angles like that? What's to stop you from just kind of trimming these down so that it's not so, angled in a 90-degree right here? Take that and just trim it off like that and make this more of a round, okay? Maybe you can do something like that. Maybe you can even go like this and use, kind of a larger portion. I don't know, like say something like this, right? And then you're using this whole side of it right here where it's kind of rounded off like that. Let's do that right now. Okay, see that right there? First inking. Applying it on. Oops, I got that one right there. Okay. See this right here? See, I'm not going like this. This is another thing people do sometimes, and it gets real choppy. If they have this whole area that's going to be coated, what they do is they go like this. Okay? And it gets a little bit more choppy. Sometimes you can use that for texture or something like that. But see, what I'm doing is I'm just staying in one area. And I'm getting a nice, good blended like that, okay? And again, I'm going like this, a little bit more pressure, and then less pressure like that, okay? So just use the natural motion of your hand. It's harder and more awkward if you go like this and then up, okay? That's not natural, but that'll leave that type of thing like that, okay? But, see like that? This is on matte paper too, okay? A little bit more absorbent than glossy, but see, you can blend those out like that, It's still apparent there, but like I said, this is like one layer of ink, and I've gone over it just very little. But you can see that transition, okay? There's your sponge. All right, Cosmetic Sponges, super cheap. Sold, so many different places. Okay, now this sponge right here is just really an extreme example of usage. So let me try to get a little bit of moisture in here because it's super dry and crusty at this point in time. It looks like I've used some black ink on it before. Alright, now if you have a newer sponge, you probably won't have to kind of moisten it, but this has been sitting around and it's, like I said, this was scrubbing like, stove tops and stuff, for, a couple months, before it was ready to, be trashed. So, I mean, you can see this part. I mean, that looks terrible. Don't use the scouring part. I wouldn't think, Okay, so let's try this one right here. Standard kitchen sponge. Okay. This ink will probably be a little bit more diluted just for the fact that I have some water in this one, but let's just check it out and see if it works. It should, right? In theory. We'll see if it works out right here. All right. This sponge is totally falling apart. It's getting a little crumbly right here, but that comes to show you just how horrible of an applicator you can use to get, these types of effects like that. Look at that. That's actually quite good. Maybe diluting the water, in there a little bit. Okay. I don't know. That looks awfully good. And look how fast it is too, huh? Look at that beautiful application of ink right there. See that color glow that we have working down here? It's not really a color glow, it's kind of a lighting glow. Okay. Let's check it out on here on glossy, okay? Now, one of the things I like to do with my applications is I like to keep, a light source in the middle like that, but I don't know. This is working pretty good. I've only tried this once before. Okay, let's see. Let's use, here's another piece right here, just on the glossy. You can kind of see what I'm going for right here. I don't know. This is not what, the crafting industry is going to want me to be doing or showing, but I'm a firm believer in making do, with what we have, if something's not available. Now, see, I mean, this is not going to be something that I'm going to be able to get in tight details with, and that's what the Colorbox Stylus Tools was fantastic for. Now, this, too, I mean, this is a pretty ergonomic tool, too. I've seen so many different applicators out there in the industry, like these little peg ones that are just like a stump, or something like that. It doesn't look like a comfortable applicator to me, but this is like, you know what I mean? If I had my hand like this would be kind of similar, to applying ink in a very ergonomic way, just with the natural motions of your hand, okay? Okay, so that's a horrible, horrible sponge. It doesn't mean you can't use a new one, right? This one's like really crumbly for me, but look at that application. That is really fast. I might have to rethink that one as my main kind of applicator, at least for certainly some big ones. Okay, this is your kitchen chamois. This one's not one of those leather ones. Okay, this one's just like a cloth one or something like that. I've never tried this before. Let's try it completely dry and see how that goes. Okay. All right. Pretty good, pretty good. It's giving me a little bit more texture, but again, this one's a used one where it has all these little balls of fabric kind of built up on them, okay? I pulled a lot of them out, but there's still some remaining there. I tell you what, let's try to moisten it a little bit, though, okay? I don't know if I'd use something like Kleenex for this, I think that would be just too flimsy, it'd be kind of linting all over the place and it would kind of fall apart. But I've often thought like an old, really worn t-shirt, that you're using for a rag would be kind of ideal. All right, this is looking pretty good. I added some water to it. It's a little bit more streaky. Now remember, I mean, this is the first time I've ever used this, so that gave me some texture in there. A little bit more texture. Okay, but this feels pretty good. It's different than the paper towel. I guess it's because of the fabric aspect of this. I don't know if this is a natural fabric or what. Like cotton, maybe. I don't think it's a synthetic. Like a polyester or something. Okay, but this is pretty good. It's a little more streaky, so... Now remember, this isn't to find out what thing works the best. You can use a lot of these different tools in conjunction with one another. Maybe you have a big area to cover. Maybe that sponge is going to work the best. All right, that's your glossy right there. Let's try this. Okay. I'm not even sure what side this one's coated. I think this one's the coated side of this matte. I don't have too many more pieces of that just right on my desk here, but, I don't think this is double-sided either, but, let's see. It's not too bad, though. Look at that. Okay, now if you wonder what I'm doing here, I mean, this would be especially confusing if you haven't seen me work before. But let's use these on this little scene right there. Okay, if I have some more. I have a feeling this will go pretty fast. Okay. Now, I'm not going to fully render this all out with, multiple tones. Let me just get, this is just for kind of the application process right here, okay? All right, so let's just try with the chamois right here. Okay. All right. Is there anyone saying, oh, you make that look so easy? All right, if you try something like that, any type of Stampscapes applications you have, basically unlimited tech support with me. So if you kind of run into anything that, you're having a difficult time with, the best thing, if you have a lot of people have phones with their cameras, right? So just email me what you're getting, and we'll take a look at it, and we'll tweak it out, and get it to where you're getting the results that you want. All right, now this is like an instantaneous coloring of this scene right here. Notice how I'm retaining the lighter areas right here where that moon is, okay? Light, light. Now this isn't a finished piece, but this is, we're talking about, color additions right now, so there's your chamois right there. Pretty good. I mean, how long did that take, to color? Was it even 60 seconds or something like that? I don't think it was 2 minutes, to do that. coloring in there. And that's just one color too. You know, I typically work through 2 or 3 colors usually. You know, light blue, medium, this is the medium blue, and then maybe a darker blue, and then black. Okay? All right, and let's check this, and this is glossy cardstock right here, okay? But it would work on matte too. Let's try this horrific looking sponge here for this one right here. This one, there's, I don't know, there's not, or let's do this one on this one, because this one, there's a lot of ink I'm finding, okay? All right, so light's coming from right here. Let's retain some of the light on some of these clouds too, so that there's reflected light as well, okay? All right, so kind of working around like this. Okay. See, now I'm not just working streak-wise, I'm kind of going along with the, kind of the, you know, the theme of the composition right here. Okay. Let's go a little bit darker on the perimeter right here, so it looks lighter in the center where the light source is. It's not like a formal moon like on this one anymore, but it's just kind of an opening, right? All right. See this right here? I mean, look at this application of it, okay? I mean, you can use horrible kind of technique like that. It's not really ergonomic either, but, you know, if you're applying things in this manner, it's really forgiving, okay? Now, if I was going with black and I went like something like this, you know, like that might be a little bit kind of obtrusive in here, but, you know, there's a lot of leeway in doing this type of thing like here. Okay, but there's one color. Look how much darker it is. Now, you know, those clouds are stamped in black in there, but see the different types of application right here? This one was more of kind of a streaky thing, you know, to go along with the kind of striations in the water, getting around that moon right there. This one's more of this kind of a dabbing pattern, you know, to get in like an area like this, you know, so I leave, you know, certain areas, you know, light. There's no set thing either, but, you know, having kind of an oscillation of light and dark, which this video is not about, but it goes dark, light, in the dark like that. Kind of checkerboarding, you know, type of lighting theory, okay? All right, so that was the sponge. We've used our chamois on that other one. Let's go with the makeup applicator. Should I use this side? Maybe I'll use this side of it. You know, just squeeze down like that. Okay. Let's say this is, you know, moonlight scene in this one, or this is snow, okay? So maybe we'll leave this a little bit lighter. Okay. Now this sponge, the sponges I'm using here, this pack of them, I had them for 20 years, okay? I barely used them. I have like a full pack of these still. But when the stylus tools, you know, I heard were not being sold anymore, you know, I kind of reached into these, this pack of these, I don't know, it was probably 99 cents a pack or something like that way back when. Still might be pretty cheap. Of these, makeup sponges, and looks pretty good, right? How long did this take, you know? Again, these are like 1 minute, right? Applications in terms of one color at least. Okay. Pretty smooth though, right? You don't see any kind of like harsh angles or anything like that. I think kind of this, now this one's kind of starting to tear on me, okay? But these are so cheap though. And again, this is like a 20-year-old one. It's not. I don't think a brand new one's going to do that unless they just, you know, make them cheaper these days, and they just tend to fall apart. You know. There you go, right there. Pretty smooth applications for, I don't know, you know, the base coat of colors. All right, and now let's see if I have some more scenes here. Let's take this one right here. Another Stampscapes. Oh, I was thinking that one was on a matte cardstock. I was hoping to get a matte cardstock one. Okay, here's your paper towel. Wad it up, you ink up, like this. And what you can do is you can kind of rub it off, you know, smash down the texture of it a little bit, and it pushes the ink back into the sponge a little bit too. And then Okay, now this one's going to be a little more involved as far as my lighting scheme, but not too much. Okay. I like to bring attention to my subject in there, so a lot of times I'll leave my subject matter a little bit lighter, and I like to leave my roads, my visual lead-ins, as I call them, a little bit lighter, so I can have a kind of illuminated pathway, excuse me, to that subject matter. All right, pretty good. Look at that. I don't know. This is like a 1 minute, initial coloring. You can certainly go darker, but I don't know. It's looking not too bad, just in terms of one thing. I like doing all kinds of little, kind of detailed tweaks on my scenes. White pigment ink, fog effects, white paint pen, little sparkly lights and whatnot. Things like that would really kind of flesh the scene out. But, in terms of just a general type of color base, it can go pretty fast. All right. Now, I darkened this chapel a little bit, but there is still some lighting on there. But there's your paper towel. So what do we have here? We have the paper towel right here. This one was the... Okay, I've already forgotten what I did here. Okay, this one was the sponge, right? Yeah, that was the brown one. Here's the blue one. This one was the chamois, I think. Yeah, I think this one was the chamois right here. Okay. And this one was the horrific used kitchen sponge right here, okay? So you have, this isn't necessarily household, and I don't know if you have the chamois under your sink or something like that, one of those cloth ones. Like, don't use a leather one. I guess you could. But as far as the usage that I've, and the technique that I've used these with, all right, I don't think you're going to go into these these 4 pieces right there and say, okay, that one was the sponge, because it's very obvious. I don't think any one of these is obvious in terms of, the applicator that was utilized, and they're quite different, in terms of their surface qualities. And this isn't even going into things like, rags, like really soft, old t-shirts, or, a cotton t-shirt. I would go with probably something a little bit more cotton. If you go with polyester, it just doesn't seem to, pick up the ink very well. You want something to be a little bit absorbent like that, But like I said, I don't think any one of these is kind of so revealing in terms of what type of material was used to apply these inks right here. And this is just kind of going in and just picking something kind of spur of the moment. I didn't think about this long and hard or something like that. I have tried a cotton ball before, and I think I was using the acrylic one. I'm not sure if I was using the 100% cotton one, but I didn't feel that that worked really well, I apply pigment inks with this type of thing, but in terms of the colored inks, or at least dye-based inks specifically, I didn't like that one too much, but you can experiment with those types of things. Maybe it works really good with like pigment inks, or maybe hybrid inks where they're a little bit thicker, and it would be used like somewhat like a paintbrush or something like that. It really feels like you're kind of finger painting when you're working with some thicker media, with a real strong connection with your hand, as opposed to working kind of separately on a brush or wand or something like that. There's a real connection. You do get pretty inky fingers when utilizing these types of things like that. It's hard to be avoided. I don't put on gloves or something like that, but sometimes I've worked, for a very long time, and I think it's because you getting your fingers like really in there or something like this, a lot of times I get ink on the backside of my fingers too, so I don't know. If you're doing something like that and if it really bothers you, you can wear a glove or something of that sort. So anyway, so don't be limited in terms of kind of your perception or state of mind when going into, you know, media of any sort, you know, in terms of looking for an applicant. Just because someone uses something on something doesn't mean there's not a lot of other options. You just kind of have to think about it, and I think that kind of enhances your creativity too when you're, you know, when you're looking around for things and opportunities as opposed to eliminating a bunch of things right down to the one applicator that has been utilized in some sort of process that you've seen, you know. So anyways, these are the types of things like that that are going on, you know, on this right here. You see these streaks in here, and this is on the matte paper too, but look how smooth you can achieve that type of application right there on these types of things. So you see these streaks in here like this? I mean, they're not as visible, you know, as this right here because there's just nothing stamped on this right now, but that's what's going on in there. See that? You know? Okay. And this one, there's not so much streaky types of applications, but I just kind of, you know, I took that sponge and I kind of swirled it in there and built up some of these tones and retained some of those lighter areas in a couple areas like that. If you kind of, someone that's just kind of getting, you know, into this and, you know, this whole type of lighting type of concept is new to you, if you go in and you eradicate all your lighting, don't worry about it. Just kind of get familiar with, you know, your application process and whatnot, and just remember to kind of, you know, if there are areas that you'd like to retain your lighting in the future, just do that on a future one, but don't, you know, kind of go into it and say, oh my god, I lost my moon, you know, and I got to toss it out or something like that. You know, just keep applying colors and try to apply more colors, you know, darker tones and whatnot. Like I said, you know, in order to finish something like this up, I would do it in some, you know, darker blues, maybe around the perimeter right here, and maybe even black in the four corners to create a strong vignette. Same type of technique, you know, and, you know, you have, here's 4 different applicators like that. It's not one or the other, you know. If you have some applicators that are going to be better for some kind of usage within the scene, but another one might be better for, you know, some smaller details or something like that, then use both of them. You know, you don't paint a room or a house, you know, with using one paintbrush, so why would you do it on your artwork, you know? You know, if you're painting something like an interior of a house, you might use the rollers for the walls, you know, and you're going to use like a brush for the trim, you know, or something like that, you know, and maybe there are some, you know, even more detailed areas or whatnot. You can even do certain things, you know, like they do with faux types of painting on walls. Maybe you got some kind of sponge and you know, if you're doing some sort of road or something like that, you can kind of get maybe some texture from the applicator that you're using it with. We can take, you know, some lessons from, you know, interior painters and whatnot in terms of what to do. So keep things nice and flexible, keep an open mind, and keep an eye out for things that might potentially work for you. There's a lot of things out there. I just grabbed the first 4 things, you know, that kind of came to mind for this video, but like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of other things out there that are available and potentially even better. But as you saw here, you know, like the worst case scenario in terms of the tool that I thought would work the worst, I don't know, this one worked pretty darn good, you know. It might have even been the best of it. So this is a horrible condition one. Does that work better, or would it work, you know, kind of better brand new? This one's kind of falling apart, so I have a feeling a new one would work really well. And, of course, the best thing about all these things is, like, as far as I know, you can find these types of things, you know, anywhere in the world at, you know, a non-specialty store. You can go pick up at, you know, at your drugstore or something like that on the shelf. Okay, so anyways, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and thank you so much for watching the video.